Canada's labor market saw a slight change in unemployment numbers. They're down 7.1% from 7.2 the month before. For more on this, we are joined by Brendon Bernard. He is a senior economist at Indeed. Brendon, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Is this in the wheelhouse? Is this what we expected?
It's actually, I think, a bit better than we expected. So employment increasing 60,000 for the month, led by full-time jobs, and the unemployment rate actually flat at 7.1%. So in the grand scheme of things, we've got to think about what happened to the job numbers this past summer. They were pretty rough, especially over the past 2 months. Declines in July and August, back-to-back months where we know these LFS numbers can be volatile, but you see 2 in a row, that's not a good streak. Well, we broke that streak in September. And so this doesn't change sort of the broad narrative of the job market, which has just been that the conditions have been gradually weakening over the past 3 years now. But it does arrest sort of like the near-term weakness that we saw in the numbers over most of Q3.
Brendon, are we seeing any gains in specific sectors and losses in other sectors from the data?
Yeah, so first standout in the numbers, 28,000 increase in manufacturing. Manufacturing has been one of the weaker areas of Canadian employment numbers so far this year. This is naturally the sector to check if we want to see what's going on with the trade war. Today, it went okay. This is just 1 month's numbers. I don't know if we've even seen the full sort of impacts of this tariff uncertainty ripple into the job market. But at least for the September numbers, one positive data point that doesn't outweigh some of the weakness we've had earlier this year, but just highlights that the trend isn't just one way down, and then some weaker numbers that we have in kind of like earlier months, they can be offset, and that, you know, this is pretty noisy data, but one where at least things aren't sort of like hurtling off the rails, which, to be honest, if we got another really negative number, if it, instead of plus 60 was minus 60, then I think we would be trending in more of that direction.
And what does that tell you, the increase in manufacturing? Do you think this is a blip? I mean, we've talked about the impact tariffs are going to have, but yet we see an increase. And I know we've struggled for the last couple of months, but now this increase. Is this just a blip, or is this a fact that companies are adjusting and managing to cope with what's going on?
Yeah, I take every labor force survey with a grain of salt. You need a few consecutive data points to really build up a trend, because we see these numbers so volatile on a month-to-month basis. And so I wouldn't necessarily kind of hold my hat on, oh, well, manufacturing was up this month, everything is fine. More so that kind of the trend isn't as negative as we saw over the summer. And one where I think, just thinking about the manufacturing sector specifically, that things are still playing out, but they don't play out necessarily on the month-to-month basis. It's over a longer time horizon. When we're thinking about the outlook for the manufacturing sector, it's not just what's already happened with, for instance, autos and aluminum and steel. We have this looming agreement coming, hopefully down the line, that if it goes well, then that's a positive runway for jobs in the overall Canadian manufacturing sector. But it's still really up in the air, and with that uncertainty, that's not great for jobs today. Just that we see in numbers like the September report that things at least aren't trending that quickly in the negative direction, and that month to month the jobs data can be positive.
Do you see this trend improving over the coming months? More job postings online? Maybe we're settling into the manufacturing.
When it comes to job postings, things have been pretty subdued over the past the past few months, but it's not really a manufacturing story. I'd say most areas of the economy, hiring appetite has been on the soft side. This has been the driver of why the Canadian unemployment rate has increased over the past few years. It's not that job security has been relatively weak. Layoffs, for the most part, have held pretty low over the past few years. It's that job seekers are finding it tougher to land new jobs, in part because hiring has been relatively slow. And so we've seen weak youth employment numbers over the past few years. This has been one of the key themes of the job market. It's also been taking unemployed folks longer to find new jobs. So job seekers in a range of circumstances have been facing difficulties. But at least the good news story is that while the job market definitely has deteriorated, we went from a sub 5% unemployment rate to now we're at 7.1%. That was over the span of like several years, at least two or 3 years. Whereas in normal recessions, we see these sort of 2 percentage point spikes in much shorter time frames. And so at least things like kind of like have it's been a gradual change, but it has been quite long. The Canadian labor market hasn't kind of moved in the right direction in a while on a sustained basis. But like I guess there's a glass half full and half empty, and then for folks at least currently employed, they're faring okay. It's on the sort of job seeker side where there have been struggles.
And were there any industries that you took that make you go, uh-oh?
Well, looking at the numbers right here, we saw some weak numbers today: wholesale, retail, trade, and construction. Construction sector is one where we've seen the Canadian home building sector in challenges lately, and so not a great data point there. Transportation and warehousing also on the weak side. But in terms of kind of like the grand sort of situation for the industries, there's volatility month to month, but the ones that are really at risk are those sort of trade exposed sectors. And to see a solid number in manufacturing and natural resources also ticked up today. That's at least for the near term stability of the labor market. That's definitely a better sign than we could have seen.
Okay, some optimism. Brendon, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Brendon Bernard is a senior economist at Indeed.